you're going to build a really profitable digital agency, the number one factor in doing so is that you have to increase your customer retention. You have to keep those customers longer. And the number one factor in doing that is making sure that you're getting the right customers in the first place. Anybody who's been in this business for any period of time will tell you that there are good customers and there are bad customers. So you've got to know how to identify the good ones early. And in this video, I'm going to show you how. Okay, when it comes to building a successful digital agency or really any services company or SaaS business, the key to profitability is long-term customer retention. A customer that stays for only 3 months, 5 months, 6 months is almost never really profitable. You're just constantly churning and looking for new customers, which makes it very hard to really cover all of your costs of sales, marketing, and onboarding and make that a profitable relationship. Anytime I look at a business that has a recurring revenue service component, I look for at least a 1-year retention of those customers on average. And honestly though, to get to the point where you're building a really, really good business, a really profitable business, is that you want those customers that stay with you for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, because everything after that first year is just really, really profitable. And you've got yourself into that operating rhythm with those customers where they're probably just the easiest customers in the world. They don't require much of you. They know how to work with you. They know how to take advantage of your tools, your services, whatever it is that you offer. So life is just better. You don't want to have that business where you're just having to constantly replace your customers. So how do we do that? How do we find the customers that are going to stay with us for the longest time? There's obviously no crystal ball, but there are certain things that you can uncover about your prospects as you are going through the sales process with them before they become a customer that will give you the best clues as to whether or not they are truly a good fit and they are likely to be a long-term customer. All right, so how do we do this? The answer is that we have got to do some good qualifying questions during our sales process to uncover the characteristics and the mindset of that prospect before we close them as a customer and before we go through all of the hard work of onboarding them and setting up services. All that stuff is a total waste of time if they're just going to churn on us in the next handful of months. So what is it that we're looking for when we're asking these qualifying questions in our sales process? The first thing is the most obvious one, and that is the business itself a good fit for your services? So this can be very obvious things like if you're selling to chiropractors and a lawyer calls and is interested in your services, well, you should not then try to reach to service a lawyer if your focus is exclusively on chiropractors. That's obvious. A little less obvious, but what is important to uncover though, let's say that you are focused on chiropractors. Maybe you found that you only are successful with chiropractors that have been in business for at least a couple of years. And maybe that's because you found that they have some operational maturity, they have some financial resources, things like that. So maybe you don't want to work with pure startups in that space. You may need to have a full-time marketing employee or a full-time admin employee at that chiropractor to make sure that you have somebody to work with to actually help execute your services because you know that the chiropractor is too busy and so it never gets done. You may want to make sure that they have a certain amount of revenues. Things like that are the kind of really just black and white things that you can look for when you're evaluating a prospect to make sure that the business itself is a good fit for you. Okay, the second thing that you're looking for when you're qualifying is that they have an actual pain that they acknowledge. Now, what's critical there is that they acknowledge it. We can oftentimes see the pain that our prospects are experiencing. We can see that they have a terrible, outdated website. We can see that they are doing some things with their marketing that are not effective. They're running ad campaigns that are never going to work. You can see those things, but if they can't see those things and they don't acknowledge the pain from those problems, then you're never really going to sell them on your services. You're never really going to get them committed to your services because they do not acknowledge that there is something broken that they want fixed. So it's absolutely critical that they acknowledge the pain. I see a lot of people in this industry, they're doing outbound sales and outbound prospecting, and they've identified prospects that they can see there's some sort of problem. They're not ranking page 1 in Google. Again, they've got some ads that you can tell you can optimize and do a much better job for them. And so you get in touch with them, and the prospect doesn't see it that way. They don't acknowledge the pain. And yet you continue to try and sell and continue to try and sell, and maybe at some point or another you convince them to do some work with you. But unless you're able to get them immediate results to show them that it was a really good decision, they're going to churn because they did not acknowledge the pain. You don't want to sell to somebody who doesn't realize that they have a problem. Okay, the third thing that we want to uncover is that they have a sense of urgency to solve that problem. Okay, we all have problems that we let drift, unfortunately, and don't tackle even though we know that we should because we don't have urgency around it. It's the same thing with the prospects that you're selling to. If they do not have urgency to solve this problem, then they are most likely, again, not a good fit. They do not experience the intensity of that pain that you want them to experience so that they are actually committed to solving this problem and committed to investing over time to make sure that they have the healthiest, most successful business possible. So this is really a mindset thing, but you want to look for somebody who has that urgency, who has that competitiveness, and really wants to solve this problem because that's the right kind of person that you want to do business with over the long term. Fourth, you want to make sure that they have the budget to solve the problem. I know so many people are uncomfortable talking about numbers with prospects until it gets down to the very last minute, the close. I've never understood this. I want my prospects to know how much they have to pay me up front because if they can't pay me, I don't want to waste my time trying to sell them. Again, I want to make sure that I have a really good fit with my customers for the long haul. So surprising them at the end and trying to convince them of my value just doesn't make any sense to me. So I have always made my prices very, very transparent. We were one of the first companies in the IT services industry when I was in that business to just publish everything about our pricing right there on our website. Most of our competitors would go through these long drawn out proposals, but I don't want to waste time with that. So at the very beginning of a conversation, I'll have a little bit of small talk with them and then I'll just say, hey, before we go any further here, I don't want to waste your time if it's not a good fit. So I would just like to be clear and tell you that the typical customer agreement for us is between $1,500 and $3,000 a month. Of course, depending on the variables of what specific services you decide that you need. But is that a good, comfortable range for you to be able to budget for these services? That way I'm just getting it right out front, out in the open. If they say no, I don't have to waste any more time. If they say yes, I've now got them committed to that range. So when I propose my pricing later on, it's going to make it harder for them to negotiate outside of that range because I asked them in the very, very beginning of the conversation, is that a range that's comfortable for you? So this transparency works in a lot of ways. You want to make sure that they have the budget to be able to take care of this. Ideally, I'd love to see that they have already been investing in some sort of marketing for some period of time, and now they're just shifting those dollars to me rather than it being new dollars that I'm asking them to allocate. Okay, the last question here, the last thing that I want you to uncover, and this is the most important one by far, is do they have the right mindset? Okay, do they have the right mindset to be a good customer of yours? Now, let me explain what I mean by the right mindset. Okay, the first thing is that you've got to get the sense that they really do value you and what you are going to do for them. Okay, we all know you're talking to some prospects that they're skeptical the whole time. Maybe they spend the whole time telling you about how they've already tried this with other service providers, they've been scammed, they've been ripped off. They may say things like, this marketing stuff doesn't really work in my industry, SEO doesn't really work, social media doesn't really work, things like that. If any of that is actually related to your services and you are trying to convince them that they should have a different mindset about their marketing. I call this doing the double sale. Okay? First, you're having to sell them on believing that what they're doing is worthwhile. And then second, you're having to sell them on doing that with you and that that's the right decision. That's a terrible situation for you to be in, to have to do that double sale. It almost never works out. It's almost always a waste of your time. So you want to look for that mindset. You want to ask them what kind of experiences they've had in marketing and how do they think about marketing at their business? How important is it to them? So that you can get a sense of that mindset, because that is absolutely critical. Again, if you are having to try and convince somebody that they should be doing marketing, they are probably going to be unconvinced in the next few months and they're going to churn. And then finally, when it comes to mindset, again, I want to find prospects that it's clear that they have the right mindset in terms of the commitment for success. Okay? Part of that is valuing the services that we already talked about. Part of that is making sure that they have the budget, that they can actually see it through. But there is also a mindset factor here that, again, you can pick up in your conversations when it comes to things like what it's going to take to be successful. So sometimes you'll get the impression that your prospect is really just like 100% expecting you to perform miracles. Like, I'm going to spend $1,000 with you a month, and if my business doesn't grow by leaps and bounds, then it's you that screwed up, agency. Well, obviously, the reality is you're not building their business for them, right? They have to be committed to doing their part, whatever that is. That could be that they have to do some follow-up on prospects, that they have to, follow certain scripts, that they have to close the deals, that they have to keep their team organized in terms of the CRM and stuff like that, and make sure that their team is actually being committed to following through on opportunities that you're helping to create for them. If they don't obviously have that mindset, and you can ask them questions about, hey, what kind of resources are you able to put towards this on your team? How committed are you to, or how open are you to using the specific strategies that we're going to advise you on instead of kind of sticking to your routine right now if that's not working? You want to ask those types of questions. And this is where the best salespeople and the most seasoned people in this industry will learn to challenge their prospects. Okay, and this is that last qualifying push that you want to do. If you feel like you're getting any resistance or you're unsure that there is a good fit, you want to challenge your prospects. And this takes a little bit of confidence. Maybe it takes some time and doing some selling before you really feel comfortable doing this, but you've got to develop this. And in fact, there's a whole methodology around this and a great book around this called the Challenger Sales Method. And what they found is that particularly in B2B sales across a ton of different studies is that prospects actually respect and buy more from that salesperson that they feel like can challenge them, can share with them insights that make them think a different way and can maybe push them to be a better version of themselves, because that is really ultimately what some of these businesses are doing with us, right? They're hiring us to help them get better. And they may not just come right out and admit, hey, I would like to be a better business person than what I am right now, but that's really a large part of what they're helping you to do. So if you feel like you're getting some resistance, you need to be comfortable in pushing back. And sometimes I will literally just come right out and say, hey, you know what? I can see that, generally it's a good fit to work with you. I think that we can absolutely help your business and you're the right kind of business to work with us and all that good stuff. But I've got to be honest with you, I'm sensing a little bit of pushback or resistance here, and maybe you can help me with that. And that line right there, maybe you can help me with that, is a fantastic way to just set them up to have to respond to you. And you can just kind of shut up, right? You've stated the issue. Hey, I'm getting the sense that there's a little bit of feedback or resistance to what this plan is that we've outlined for you. Maybe you can help me with that. And you want to see them step up. You want to see them step up to the plate and show their commitment, show that, no, this is something that I've got to get done. If they don't do that, you're probably best to go ahead and walk away. Trust your gut, because those prospects that aren't really committed are not going to stick with your services for a long time, and that's no way to run a business. All right, I hope that this helped you. Down below, there's going to be some more resources in the comments if I can help you in any way to build your agency. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. Please comment with any questions. I ask them all personally. And if you know somebody that would get some value from this, please share it with them. And of course, subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on a future video.